At 53, I thought I had everything. Corner office overlooking Manhattan, a seven-figure salary, boardroom respect. My signature closed deals worth millions. But then my 12-year-old daughter looked at me with glassy eyes and asked, "Dad, are you still part of this family?" That question hit harder than any market crash. I'd spent over 2 decades building an empire, convinced I was securing their future. But when I tried to remember the last family dinner, the last birthday I attended, the last bedtime story I read, I couldn't. I had photos of milestones on my phone, but no memories of being there. I used to think success meant sacrifice, that every missed moment could be bought back with a vacation, a car, a college fund. But that day, I realized I hadn't just missed moments. I had erased myself from their lives. The weeks that followed broke me. A hospital emergency, a divorce filing, a son who wouldn't meet my eyes. I was about to lose the very people I thought I was working for. But this isn't where it ends, because I made a choice to fight for the family I'd failed. This is the story of how I burned down the life I thought I wanted to rebuild, the one I should have chosen all along. My name is Richard Morrison. I'm 53 years old. And for most of my adult life, I've been chasing something I couldn't quite name, until the day I lost nearly everything. I grew up in a rusted trailer home outside of Dayton, Ohio. My mother died when I was 9. My father, a mechanic who drank more than he spoke, worked double shifts and called it love. By 17, I had decided I would never be poor again. I would build a life where my wife and children would never feel the cold hunger of unpaid bills or the shame of second-hand shoes. When I met Emily in college, a future teacher with a laugh that made strangers smile, I knew she was the one. We married 2 years after graduation. She was my compass, my calm, my reason. When she told me she was pregnant with Alex, I swore to her, I'll give him everything we never had. That promise became my mission. Real estate was booming, and I was good at it. I had a gift for reading people, for closing deals others couldn't. Within 5 years, I became one of the youngest VPs at Sterling & Marks, a commercial real estate giant in Manhattan. We moved into a brownstone with bay windows and a backyard swing set. I leased Emily a hybrid SUV and started a college fund before Alex could walk. Lily came along 5 years later, and I was already envisioning private schools and trust funds. At first, I balanced it all. Morning pancakes, bedtime stories, weekend soccer games. I scheduled calls around ballet recitals and canceled meetings for doctor visits. Emily used to say, "You're doing it, Rich. You're being both the man and the dad." I believed her. But then came the first fork in the road. Emily was graduating with her MBA. It was a big deal. She'd studied at night while raising our kids, teaching full-time, managing the house. She wanted to celebrate. She invited her parents, made reservations at the French restaurant she loved. I promised I'd be there. Then, a client from Dubai flew in early. A $38 million commercial complex on Fifth Avenue was on the line. I looked Emily in the eye that morning and said, "I'll try my best, okay?" I didn't make it. She never raised her voice, never accused me. Just sent a photo of her in a cap and gown, smiling beside Alex and Lily. I framed it and put it on my desk. But something changed in her eyes after that day. Something quiet. Over time, the missed events piled up like fallen leaves. I skipped Alex's middle school orientation for a 3-day pitch in San Diego. I called in late to our anniversary dinner. Emily and I ended up eating cold pasta and not speaking much. She always said, "It's okay. I understand." And I believed her. until I started seeing the signs I didn't want to see. Alex, once eager to show me his drawings or talk about school, stopped waiting at the door when I came home. He mumbled night instead of hugging me. When I offered to play catch, he said, maybe later, but later never came. I brushed it off. Teenagers, I told myself, they pull away. Then came the deal that would define my career, my largest negotiation to date, securing a 10-year lease for a flagship tech client in the heart of Manhattan. I celebrated with champagne and congratulations from the board. I got home late that night. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table. Her face looked pale, tired. Lily was already asleep upstairs. "You didn't check your phone," she said quietly. I frowned. "No, I was in meetings all day." "Why?" "Lily broke her wrist. She fell off the monkey bars. I took her to the ER. She cried for you the whole time." My chest tightened. Jesus, why didn't you call my assistant? "I did. I called you too, 8 times. I looked at my screen. Missed calls, voicemails. I hadn't even noticed. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just got up and walked to bed. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, that I actually saw the cast on Lily's arm. I had been so busy with follow-ups, media interviews, investor calls. Lily showed it to me while drawing with her left hand. "This one's my robot arm," she said with a smile that broke my heart. That night, I lay awake and realized something terrifying. I was building the future I promised. But I was no longer part of the present. I thought my family understood, that they were proud of me, that they knew everything I did was for them. But they had started building a life without me. And I hadn't even noticed. The silence in our home wasn't the angry kind. It was practiced, polished. Like everyone had agreed, without saying a word, that my presence didn't change the temperature of the room anymore. Emily had started writing again. I noticed the notebooks first. Spirals tucked beside the couch, edits scribbled in the margins. I asked once, "What's that?" She smiled politely and said, "Just something for me." I never asked again. Months later, during a layover in Atlanta, I stumbled across a headline on my tablet. Children's book climber hits Amazon Top 100. The author's name was E. Grace Martin. The photo looked oddly familiar. I zoomed in. My wife's eyes stared back, only colder, distant. She hadn't mentioned it. Not once. That night, I congratulated her. She nodded, said thanks, then asked if I'd be in town for Lily's art showcase next Thursday. "I'll try," I said. "You always try." Alex had become a star on his school's soccer team. I found out through a colleague. His daughter went to the same school. I asked Alex why he hadn't told me about his games. He shrugged. "You're busy. And you hate sports, remember?" I used to coach his little league team. He used to beam when I walked on the field. One Sunday morning, I was looking for a pen in Lily's room. Her backpack was unzipped, and a small purple journal peeked out. I shouldn't have, but I opened it. Her handwriting was uneven, full of scribbles and stars. One line caught my eye and locked the air in my lungs. "My dad is a ghost in a suit. He smiles at strangers more than at me." I closed the journal, sat on her bed for a long time. I wanted to burn that line out of my memory. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it. But I knew she did. That week, Emily asked if we could talk. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, like strangers on a long flight. "I've been offered a promotion," she said. "It's a program director role in California." I blinked. "Wow, that's huge. So, you'll need to travel a bit?" "No," she said. "We'd move there. Me and the kids. A pause. I asked, "And you want me to come too?" She smiled. It was faint, tired. "Don't worry, you don't have to. We've gotten used to doing things without you." I felt the wind leave my lungs. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened again. "That's not fair." "No," she said gently. "It's not. But it's true." My best friend Dan called me a week later. He'd gone through a divorce the year before. Same blueprint. Workaholic husband, emotionally starved wife. "She's not going to wait forever," he warned. Mine didn't. I told him I had it under control. I didn't. Emily scheduled a marriage counseling session for us. I agreed. Then I canceled the day before. Sterling's board was flying in from London, and I had to present our Q3 roadmap. I texted her a half-hearted apology. She never replied. Later that night, I walked into our bedroom. The lights were dimmed. On the dresser was a folder labeled Lily's School Info. I opened it to find a packet, New School Options, in California. The application forms had Emily's signature. Alex was quieter than usual. At dinner, I asked about college plans. He said, "I already applied." "To where?" "University of Washington, Reed, UC Santa Cruz, a few others." I blinked. "You applied without me?" "I didn't think you'd have time." The knife twisted deeper. Another weekend, another conference. I was giving a keynote at a hotel in Chicago. After the event, I checked my emails. One from my assistant marked confidential. It wasn't addressed to me. It was forwarded. Emily had contacted a law firm. She had scheduled an initial consultation. The subject line read, "Seeking representation for potential separation." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I called her. No answer. I tried Alex. No response. Lily finally picked up. "Hey, Dad," she said. "Hi, sweetheart. Is everything okay?" A pause. "Yeah, we're just watching a movie." "Can I talk to your mom?" "She's asleep," Lily said. It was 8:15 p.m. I hung up, stared at the ceiling of my hotel room, realized I didn't know the name of the movie, or whether they liked popcorn, or what bedtime stories Lily liked now. I was still in the family photo, but I had already been edited out of the frame. The call came during the final hour of the board meeting. I had just been named the next CEO of Sterling and Marks's Eastern Division. Applause, champagne, backslaps from men in suits who barely knew my children's names. My heart was pounding, but not from pride, from something I couldn't name yet. My phone vibrated on the table. Then again, and again. Caller ID, Emily, then Alex, then Emily again. I silenced it, cleared my throat, clicked to the next slide. I was in the middle of unveiling our East Coast growth strategy when my assistant slipped into the room and whispered in my ear, "Sir, your wife's been calling. It sounds urgent." I waved him off. 10 more minutes. 10 minutes turned into 40. By the time I left the conference room, I had 23 missed calls and 6 voicemails. I listened to one. Emily's voice, cracked and breathless. "Richard, Alex was injured. During the game, he collapsed. They're prepping him for surgery. Please, please come." My legs moved before my brain caught up. I sprinted to my car, dialed her back, then Lily. No answers. At the hospital, I was too late. The surgery was over. I found them in recovery. Emily was seated beside Alex, who lay unconscious, pale against the white sheets. Lily sat at his feet, clutching his toes through the blanket. They didn't look up when I walked in. I stepped forward. "Emily." She turned slowly. Her eyes were rimmed red, but dry. Her voice was flat. "He kept asking for you before they sedated him." I swallowed. I didn't know. You knew, you just chose. I wanted to say I was sorry, that I hadn't meant to miss it, that this wasn't who I was, but this was who I had become. Later that night, after they'd gone home and I'd returned to our now too large house, I opened my laptop to check emails. The first one was from Langley and Prescott, LLP. Subject, filing notice. Morrison v. Morrison. I clicked. It was a divorce petition, filed by Emily Morrison. Attached was a scanned image, a photo. Alex in the hospital bed. Emily holding his hand. Lily on the other side, laying her head on his shoulder. My chair was empty. The next morning, Emily stood in the kitchen. She was making toast, calm, like nothing had changed. I stood across from her and said, "So it's real." She didn't look at me. "Yes." "Don't I deserve a conversation first?" She put down the knife, finally met my eyes. "Okay, let's talk. What's the name of the condition Alex is being treated for?" I blinked. I don't know the full term. Something to do with... She cut in. "It's a torn ACL. He has to undergo months of physical therapy. He may never play again." Silence. She stepped closer. "What's Lily's middle name?" That hit harder than any lawsuit. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "It's Grace," she whispered. "You picked it. In the delivery room. You said she'd need grace in a world like this." Her voice trembled for the first time. Do you even remember that?" I didn't. Not really. I remembered a hospital room, white lights, crying, but not the moment, not the name, not my daughter's middle name. I sat on the edge of the counter. My legs couldn't hold me. She walked out of the kitchen, just like that. Lily passed me in the hallway later that evening. I knelt down, tried to hug her. She flinched. "I don't need you anymore, Dad." Her voice wasn't angry. It was factual, like she'd made peace with it. She walked past. And just like that, I realized, truly realized, I was no longer a father. Not in the ways that mattered. That night, I walked through every room of the house. The art room Emily once painted in. The playroom with dust-covered Legos. The garden we never planted. Everything we built. Everything we filled with hope. Now hollow. Now mine alone. The morning after Lily's words gutted me, I walked into my office on the 38th floor of Sterling and Marks and handed my resignation to the chairman. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're walking away from a $4.2 million bonus," he said. "I'm walking toward something more important," I replied. "You sure about this, Morrison? You don't come back from a move like this." "I'm not coming back," I said. That afternoon, I cashed out my equity shares, closed every company account, and deleted a decade's worth of accolades from my office hard drive. I packed one box, photos of the kids, a coffee mug Lily had once painted with her handprint, and a quote Emily gave me when we got married. "Don't build a house if you're never going to live in it." I held a press conference 2 days later. The media expected a promotion announcement. Instead, I said into the mic, "I've spent the last 20 years building towers, closing deals, chasing numbers. But somewhere along the way, I stopped showing up for the people I claimed I was doing it all for. So today, I'm stepping down. Not for failure, but for something far more important. I'm choosing my family for the first time in my life." It made the front page. Social media praised my honesty. Colleagues sent emails saying they admired my bravery. My wife and kids didn't say a word. The first thing I did was put the house up for sale. The 5-bedroom brick colonial that echoed at night. I bought a modest 2-story home in a quiet suburb 15 minutes from Alex's school. No gate, no intercom, Just grass, a mailbox, and silence. Then I found it. The old Schwinn bicycle Alex had once ridden as a boy, rusted and dusty in a pawn shop on 4th Street. I restored it myself, painted it navy, reattached the bell. When I gave it to him, he looked at me and said, "Thanks," before turning away. No smile, no sentiment. Just, "Thanks." I picked Lily up from school one afternoon. She sat in the back seat, headphones in. I tried to start a conversation, asked about her day, her drawings. She nodded or shrugged. When we pulled into the driveway, I said, "I'm trying, sweetheart." She got out without a word. That night, Emily came over to drop off a box of Alex's things. She stood in the doorway, looked around the small house. "You downgraded," she said. I nodded. I wanted to be closer, to simplify. She folded her arms. "You've made promises before, Rich. Big gestures, vacation homes, surprise parties, all followed by months of silence. This is different. Why?" "Because for the first time, I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm earning one." She left without responding. I started therapy that week. The first session, I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before walking in. My therapist, Dr. Cartwright, asked me why I was there. "I don't know who I am anymore," I said. "I was always the provider, the man with a plan. Now, I'm just a man with an empty house." We talked about my mother's death, my father's absence, the way I mistook work for love, how I built walls of ambition to protect myself from feeling irrelevant. Dr. Cartwright told me to start writing. I began journaling every morning before sunrise. Stream of consciousness pages that often ended in ink stains from tears. I watched old family videos at night. One in particular broke me. It was a spring picnic. Emily laughing, Alex chasing bubbles, Lily with peanut butter on her cheeks. I was behind the camera, narrating. At one point, Emily turned and said, "Come be in it with us," and I replied, "Someone has to capture it." I paused the video, pressed rewind, watched again. "Come be in it with us. Someone has to capture it." I never joined them. I never turned the camera around. I watched that video until the battery died, crying on the floor like a man who had just found out his soul had been misplaced. Weeks passed. I showed up at Lily's school art fair. She didn't talk to me, but she didn't ask me to leave either. Alex left his headphones on the kitchen table. I placed them on his backpack. He nodded. Emily stopped by one night to pick up a few things. She saw my notebook on the table. She opened it, read a few lines. I didn't try to stop her. She put it down, looked at me and said, "You really are trying, huh?" "I am," I said. "Even if I don't get any of you back." She bit her lip, nodded once. No promises, no forgiveness. Just a flicker. A beginning. Healing didn't happen with some grand, cinematic moment. There was no applause, no final speech. It began in the smallest, most ordinary ways. I started by knocking before entering Alex's room. He didn't respond the first time, or the second, but on the third try, he said, "It's open." He didn't look up from his laptop, but I sat on the edge of his bed and asked, "Mind if I hang out?" A shrug. That was a yes in teenage language. The next morning, I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, burnt toast, and orange juice. I left a plate for Lily on the table. When she came down, she paused, eyed the food, and then sat quietly. She didn't say anything, but she ate all of it. Even the toast. Progress. I offered to drive her to school that week. She hesitated, then nodded. In the car, she played her music on low volume. I didn't complain, didn't make small talk, just drove. Halfway there, she turned to me and asked, You know what a VSKO girl is? I smiled. No idea. She giggled. You're so old. And for the first time in a long while, we laughed together. A few days later, I came home to an envelope on the kitchen table. No return address, no explanation. Just my name in Emily's handwriting. Inside was a birthday card. Simple, no glitter, no joke. Just 3 handwritten words. Thanks for staying. I sat in that chair for nearly an hour, staring at those words. The ink had smeared in one corner, just slightly, like it had been written with a trembling hand. The next Saturday, Alex knocked on my door. There's a game tomorrow, he said. Varsity. I'm starting. Want me to come? I asked, cautious. A pause. Yeah, he mumbled. If you want. I arrived an hour early, sat in the front bleachers. I cheered like a lunatic. He didn't look at me once during the game, but after the final whistle, when he walked off the field, he tossed his jersey at me and said, "Keep it." That was my first clean sheet of the season. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw Lily nudge Emily in the crowd, whisper something, and smile. That night, we had dinner together. Not a birthday or a holiday, just a Tuesday. We ate spaghetti. Lily made garlic bread. Alex cleared the plates. Emily didn't look like she wanted to run anymore. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. A month passed. Emily got a short-term consultancy gig downtown. She asked if I could pick up the kids 3 days a week. I said yes before she finished the sentence. Suddenly, I was making school lunches, forgetting to cut the crusts, mixing up water bottles. But I was present. I was there. And one afternoon, Lily walked into the kitchen holding her phone. "Wanna be in a TikTok?" I blinked. "What's a TikTok?" She rolled her eyes. "Just say yes." She handed me a feather boa, a pair of sunglasses, and filmed me dancing terribly to a song I'd never heard. We posted it under her account. It got 28,000 views in 2 days. The caption read, "Teaching Dad how to be a person again." The next video featured Alex showing me how to tie his soccer cleats. Another had Emily watching us attempt a cooking challenge. She couldn't stop laughing. People online started following us, not for the dances or the jokes, but for the story. One comment read, "This is what redemption looks like." I didn't feel redeemed, not yet, but I felt included. One night I was driving Alex to practice. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, "You're different now." I gripped the steering wheel. "I'm trying to be." "I know," he said. Then he added, "You feel more like a friend than a boss." That sentence stayed with me, not because I wanted to be his friend, but because I used to be a stranger. We made dinner together on Sundays. Nothing fancy, grilled cheese, tacos, frozen pizza, but we made it together. We started playing board games again, watching movies in the living room instead of in separate rooms, laughing without trying. Emily and I weren't together. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But we were co-parenting, sharing inside jokes, sitting next to each other at school events. I once caught her looking at me during Lily's recital. Her eyes weren't angry anymore. They were tired, but softer. Afterward, she whispered, "Nice tie." It was the same one I wore the day we met. The healing wasn't loud. It wasn't fast. But it was happening. One smile, one dinner, one awkward dance at a time. 6 months after I resigned, I started a blog. It began as a place to process. Nothing fancy, no promotions. Just a quiet corner of the internet titled Second Chances and Burnt Toast. My first post was raw, unedited, written in a single sitting at 3 a.m. It was called, The greatest regret of my life. I wrote about missing birthdays, skipping school plays, learning my daughter's favorite color from a drawing she made, not from a conversation. I wrote about confusing money for meaning and presents for provision. I clicked publish and went to bed thinking no one would care. By sunrise, the post had over 3,000 shares. Within a week, it hit 100,000. Emails came in from men around the world. Bankers, truck drivers, doctors, bartenders, who all said the same thing. I thought I was the only one. That was when I realized my mistake wasn't just mine. It was systemic, cultural, inherited. So I joined a local nonprofit that supported new fathers. I started speaking at workshops, mentoring younger men, telling them the truth I wished someone had told me 20 years ago. You don't get these years back. Show up. Even if you're tired. Even if it's awkward. Show up anyway. It didn't undo my mistakes, but it gave them purpose. Emily published a new book. She didn't tell me about it until the launch. She left a signed copy on my porch, wrapped in brown paper with a note that simply said, "You'll know which chapter is yours." It was a children's story titled, "The Man Who Forgot He Was Loved." In the story, a father spends his days building towers out of glass and steel, convinced that the higher he climbs, the more his family will admire him. But every time he adds a floor, he moves further from the ground, until one day he realizes he's alone at the top of a tower no one visits. He climbs back down, brick by brick, word by word. The final page shows him sitting on the grass, watching his children laugh, not because he gave them the world, but because he was finally in it. I cried in the kitchen, holding that book like it was a mirror. Alex graduated the following spring. During his speech, he thanked his teachers, his friends, and then, unexpectedly, his family. My mom taught me compassion, my sister taught me patience, and my dad taught me how to come back from a mistake. The auditorium went quiet. Then, a single clap. Then more, until the room was full of it. After the ceremony, he pulled me aside. "I'm thinking of teaching," he said. "Elementary school." I blinked. "Really?" "Yeah. I want to be there for kids the way I wished you had been there for me. But not out of anger. Just because I know it matters now." I pulled him into a hug, and for the first time in years, he didn't pull away. Lily, now 17, told me over breakfast that she wanted to study psychology. "I want to help families," she said. "Ones that look perfect on paper but feel like ghosts at the dinner table." I asked if it was about us. She smiled. "Partly, but mostly because I believe people can change." She reached for my hand and squeezed it. "You did." The university called a few months later. They were holding a conference on family systems, inviting speakers with real-life experience alongside academics. They asked if I would open the event. I almost declined. Public speaking still made me sweat. But Emily told me, "Your story matters, maybe now more than ever." So I flew out to California, stood at a podium in front of 300 people, and began. I thought I was building their future, but I was actually erasing myself from it, until I stopped. And now, we build it together. There was a pause. Then the applause came. And somewhere in the crowd, Emily stood with Alex and Lily beside her, no longer waiting for me to show up, because I already had.